Reactionary.net, here to help you learn about React.js. Everyone from experts to novices, we're here to help you develop your knowledge. Let's act ready, show you how. Learn the ins and outs of React now.
Hi there web devs, Zach here from the Reactionary.net, where we're grokking the React.js library together. Today I'm going to be doing the first in a tutorial series called the Code Venturing Tutorial Series. Now I've already done this series in the form of blog posts at the Reactionary.net, so if you prefer to read along, then you can go ahead and go onto the Reactionary.net and follow along that way. If you'd prefer to continue watching, then feel free to go ahead. And today we're going to be creating the first in a series of components that will comprise an application that we're going to build over a number of videos. Now it's worth mentioning before we get started with all this, none of the code that you're going to see here today is going to be what you would consider production ready code. So don't go all copy paste cowboy on everything that you see here. The idea is more to get you with your toe in the water as far as the React.js pool is concerned, and allow you to take your next steps in finding your own depth of knowledge in order to be able to produce production ready applications. Now a great next step is the next couple of tutorials that I'll be putting out. But for now, you might just like to perhaps Google or find other resources in order to be able to expand your knowledge. So let's get code venturing. So let's begin at the beginning, and the beginning for most projects is to create ourselves a new folder to house the project. So let's go ahead and create a new folder. Now it's not a naming competition, so I'm just going to call mine Code Quest Part 1. And within Code Quest Part 1, we'll create ourselves a new folder, a new file even. We'll call that index.html. I don't think any of this will have surprised you so far. So now we're going to go ahead and open this up in our favorite text editor, my one being JetBrains WebStorm. And I'll go ahead and find my folder in the Reactionary under Code Quest Part 1. Okay, so now I am going to just copy paste some boilerplate into index.html. Well, I mean, I say boilerplate, it's actually the code from the blog post that this YouTube video was inspired by. And you can see here in the code that, well, first of all, we've got some doc type, just some, as I say, boilerplate code. We've got the title here. Now, the title's really inconsequential. I called mine Code Quest, the road to React greatness, because that's what we're heading for. And we've got a link here to the codequest.css, which we'll create in a moment. We've got a div here. This is a curious div. It's called the Kingdom. And that is actually where the application that we're going to be building is going to reside. Being a code quest, I thought it was a nice theme that the application would reside within the kingdom. The next couple of tags here are script tags calling to the CDN of React.js as well as React.dom.js. Then finally we've got a script tag for the codequest.js, which is where our application is going to live. So, as I say, no real big surprises here, just a few things to point out as far as where the application actually lives within the kingdom, as well as the CDN scripts here, and the fact that we've brought in both React.js and React.dom.js. I may go into more detail about why we need both of those in another video or another blog post, and when I do, I will put a link in the description. So now we've got the root of our application, we're ready to start making a folder structure for our application. I'll head back into WebStorm here and we'll make ourselves some folders, although you could do this in Explorer obviously. I'm going to make myself a folder for assets, as well as another one for CSS, and a final one called script. And that's just following along from, I mean, you can see the file structure more or less from what's already in the HTML here. So now that we've got our folder structure, let's put something into our folders. So the first thing that we'll need is the scroll that I'm going to be using to invite you on the code quest. So let's go into the assets folder here, and we're going to copy in the scroll image, which we're going to helpfully rename scroll here. And this scroll image was created. I'd like to give credit to the person who made this scroll image, but I'm going to absolutely butcher his or her name, so I apologize for this. But the person who made the scroll image was WG Dienstag Sommerheits Sonnenschein. Sonnenschein. It's German. I'd like to invite you to head over to the reactionary.net to read who did that, but I'll also put it in the description below. Now that we've got that scroll in there, we're all ready to start working on the CSS. So let's get started there. So we'll go into the CSS folder here, and we'll create ourselves a new style sheet, which we're going to call codequest.css. I'm going to copy paste here. Now you'll notice I'm going to copy paste quite a number of times throughout the tutorial, and I kind of expect you to as well if you're going to follow through the tutorial from the blog. Mainly because, well, there's not really a lot of value in typing this out. And I mean, if you do want to type it out, then feel free to pause the video and you can type all this out. But for the purposes of learning React.js, this CSS is not really all that important. It's just placing the different components on the screen in a nice way. So, I mean, you can see here that we've got the background image is going to assets scroll GIF when we find a scroll class. But I mean, other than that, it's all just padding and margins and so forth. So we won't spend too much time dwelling on that. If you have any problems with that, then Google's your friend there.
All right, get loose, get ready, because you're about to make your first React component.
All right, let's do this. So the first thing that we're going to do is create a JavaScript file here called codequest.js. Once again, that's going to get pulled in the index.html under the, you can see here the script tag pulls that in. So we'll take another copy paste from the blog post. Move those line numbers. So what are we doing here? What is this code doing? So you can see that it's creating a variable called codequest, and in that it's loading in the result of a function call to create class, which is on the React global variable. And that React global variable is getting created when we're pulling in this script tag here. You can see that from the React.js it's above codequest.js, so that's where it's creating that global variable. Now, create class takes a single parameter, which is an object, which is the definition of the component that you're trying to make. So create class returns a React component, and this is the definition of the component that you want the create class to return. You can see here that we've got a single property on that definition, and the property is called render, and it is populated with a function. So the render function is a lifecycle method that is used by React.js, and it's used whenever a component changes, whether that be when it first loads up or whether that's when its state changes, whether its properties change. The things that it's basically the display needs to be updated, React.js calls the render function, and that then in turn calls it returns to the virtual DOM what needs to be updated or what the component actually looks like now, so that then the virtual DOM can work out what needs to be updated more accurately. How the virtual DOM works and all that is outside of the scope of this conversation. However, I do have a blog post explaining how all that works if you're interested, and I'll put a link below. So let's keep having a look here. So within the create element function call, we've got 3 parameters. Now, those 3 parameters are, the first one is the the name of the tag that you want to render, so in this case a div. The second parameter is for the props, which we're going to cover in a moment. And the third property or parameter is what you actually want to display within that tag. So what this create element function returns to us, or the definition that gets returned from the render function, is a div with the word hello friend inside of it. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So now that we've defined our React component, being the CodeQuest component, we're going to need something that will allow us to be able to tell React that this component needs to be rendered onto the screen for us. So we're going to use another piece of code, and I'll take a copy of it here from the blog post. So let's take a look at this line of code. So this line of code it begins with React DOM, the global variable, and on that global variable there appears to be a function called render. Now render here is taking two parameters, the first being a React element and the second being a DOM element. So what we're saying here is take this React element, which is the CodeQuest React component that we defined earlier, and then we want to render that within this DOM element, being the kingdom. You can see here this is just plain JavaScript here, document.getElement by ID, and we're passing in the string the kingdom, and you can see that's joining it up to the div here. So what we're saying here is React DOM, take CodeQuest and then render it within the kingdom. So this will be enough for us to be able to see our first hello world or hello friend version of the React component. Now I haven't actually opened this yet, so this is as close to live coding as it gets. I'm really hoping that this cut I'm able to put into the final video. But let's have a look here. We're going to open up index.html. It's opened up down here. And we've got hello friend. Now, that's not all that exciting, it's just text, but if we go ahead and we have a look at what's been rendered here, we've got the div with the kingdom, and within it is a div with hello friend inside of it. And that matches up with what we've got here. In effect, we've got a div with hello friend inside of it. So you've just created your first React component, my friend, even if it is the least exciting piece of code that you've ever written. But it's not exactly a scroll to invite you on a code quest, is it? So let's continue on and we'll try and work out how to get that done. Alright, from here let's do some quick-fire, tight loop sort of coding here. We're going to change a whole heap of things and then hit F5 a whole heap of times. So you remember that I said here that this third parameter is actually for the children of your tag here. So that div element is the top root level of our component, but then it can actually have any number of children, and you can nest create elements within create elements. So what we could do here is if we bring this out like that, then in here we could say react.createElement. We could have this be a div and also have no props. And we could turn this back into a string, because apparently it's not a string anymore. And then that's legal. We hit save. Bit of a control S there. Nothing has apparently happened, except that when we look in the code here, look, a div within a div. It's almost like I planned it that way. So that's cool. Let's create some more divs here. Now, I'm not going to write all these ones out because there's a few of them here. What we're going to do now is just put in the rest of the paragraphs of my invitation to you. So let's not read it here. This is ugly, but you can just see that we're creating a number of divs that are all essentially the same here. So we'll hit Control S, we'll hit F5, there we are. Hello friend, I'd like to invite you on a wondrous adventure towards the grok of React.js. Will you join me? Zach Brady, the Reactionary. So, that's my invite to you. But it's an invite, and in the traditional sense, I guess you could copy paste this into an email, but we're on an adventure, damn it. So we're going to create make it look like a scroll. So let's open it up back here. And we're going to use our first set of props here. So props is going to be an object, and we're going to give it a property called class name. That class name is going to be scroll. Control S, F5, magic. All right, so now you have your traditionally themed invitation to join me on your knowledge adventure. So yeah, let's have a look at the code here. So with this props, we're giving it the prop name class name. Now, what this actually translates to, and perhaps we should have a look at the code here. That translates to just class. You see here? Class equals scroll. And the reason for that is, well, React.js is in JavaScript, and there's certain JavaScript reserved words, such as, class, function, return, but in this case, more importantly, class. And so when we're wanting to define a prop, and in case you haven't worked it out yourself, the prop here translates to attributes that are going to get put onto the tag that gets rendered. Now, you can't just write class in JavaScript, so React has helpfully given things that have reserved words in JavaScript these other names that you can then use in the props. So there's things like class for you can't use, so there's a replacement HTML for. Now what we've done so far is pretty great. Don't let me discourage you, yeah? Like you've done pretty good. But could it be better? Yeah, probably. So let's take a few steps to making this a little bit more of a reactive experience rather than just, a scroll on a page. So, a friend though you may be, I'm pretty sure that your first name is not friend. So, let's take some steps to making it so that you can personalize your scroll so that I can actually invite you on the code quest. So, what we'll do is within our div, our parent div, we will create another React element, and this time we're going to create a input. Now the input is going to take some props. It's going to need a type. That will be text. We're going to make a text box here. Yeah. We're going to have it have a change handler. And React provides us with a useful property that we can use within props called onChange, and that hooks up a change handler for us automatically, which is quite nice. They've got a number of different sort of baked in things that you can use with the basic HTML tags within React. So the onChange is going to call the this.handleChange function. We'll have a comma so that and I'll spell handle change correctly as well, which, spelling is important. So that will call the handle change function on this. So, this implies that it's going to be on the object that gets created by the React.create class. So what we'll do is we will add that handle change function onto our definition of our React component. Now I've called it handle change here. It could have easily been anything. You could have called it drink potion. You could have called it go dancing with Murlocs. I don't know. it doesn't really matter. The point is that I made that name up, yeah, and you can put any properties that you like onto this create class, and it will create them as properties of the class that comes out of React.create class. So within handle change, we're going to call this .set state, and we're going to pass it in an object, and there will be a property on the object called name, and we're going to pass in the value, the e.target.value, so the value of the input box when it changes. So this .set state is a special way for us to be able to set the state of a React component. So React components store state within themselves, and when you call this .set state, it's a special way of mutating that state in such a way that React.js knows, okay, something in the component's changed, and I'm going to need to tell the virtual DOM that, hey, I've changed and you should repaint me. So that's the purpose of this .set state. So now that we're actually setting the state, what we can do is use that state within the component that we've created here. So you remember, in the same way that we can have any number of children in this top create element, you can have any number of children in any create element call that you like. So here I'm going to have hello, and then immediately after that I'm going to populate the div here with this .setState.name. Now, so that I don't look like a fool, this is going to fail. But let's make it fail so that we can see it fail. Nothing gets rendered. And you can see here, cannot read property name of null. So what's happened here? Well, we've tried to operate on state, which you can see here. We've called this .state, so we've tried to operate on state, but nowhere have we initialized that state. So there's another lifecycle function that you're going to learn now, another React lifecycle function, and it's called getInitialState. As I said, it's also a function here. Now I've just noticed in the code snippet on the blog post, I've actually got this as a named function. So it says getInitialState like that. But it's actually not necessary, and I can't remember exactly why it's like that. But if you're going to read the blog post after this, then that's why that's different. Because reasons. So the getInitialState function is going to return the initial state. It does what it says on the tin. So initially we're going to call you friend, but then later we're going to allow you to be able to change that to something else. So let's save this down, and then we'll bring back up the running application, hit F5. And it appears there's something going wrong with the CSS there, but this still works. So I'll do a wipe, and then we'll come back. And so what I realized was that I had cleverly put in a difference in the code to what is in the blog post to give the people who are watching the YouTube video some extra content, some extra goodness. So I'll invite you to follow along while we fix my I can't save that. My mistake. I made a mistake, alright? So basically, see this class name scroll here? I've got it on the top level div. I'd made a few mistakes here actually. So follow along as we fix these. So we'll get rid of that first of all. I controlled X to that, right? So we're going to copy that back in a moment. So we're just going to make that null in the props, and then we're going to go down just below the input box here. We'll make a containing div that will hold all our scroll stuff. So this is where I'm going to Control V here and copy the class name in there. And then I'll get rid of that parentheses because all these are going to be children of the scroll containing div. Errors go away. I hit Control S. Nothing happens. What's happened here? I misspelled create. That is not the way to spell create. Even further, extra content just for watching the YouTube videos. Okay, so I'll take a third stab at spelling create correctly. And there it is. Your invitation. Hello, I'll invite myself for now because, well, I don't know your name, but I typed my name in there. Hello, Zach. I'd like to invite you on a wondrous adventure towards the grok of React.js. Well, you've now completed your first component in React.js, and I hope you're proud of yourself. I enjoyed making this video tremendously, and I can't wait to make the next one. I really hope that you can't wait to watch the next one as well. In the next one, we're going to be building a small pipeline to compile our JavaScript, and that's going to allow us to, in future tutorials, to unlock the power of ES6 syntax as well as JSX syntax. Now, if you enjoyed the video, then hit the like button, but no pressure there. Only hit the like button if you really did like it. If you didn't like the video, then, well, you can hit the dislike button. But if you do hit the dislike button, I'd really like it if you left me a comment and tell me what I did wrong. What would you like me to improve on? It's important to me that I'm delivering to you value, so I'd really like to be able to deliver value in a way that you enjoy it. If you really enjoyed the video, then you might like to hit subscribe, and that way you would get notified when the next video comes out. I plan on releasing these videos on the 1st and 15th of every month, but if you can't wait until the next video comes out, then why don't you head over to the reactionary.net. There's heaps of really good content there. There's opinion pieces, there's reviews, there's the rest of this tutorial series. If you can't wait to see what the next tutorial is, then there's spoilers over there. But until next time, I hope that you enjoy your adventures in React.js. I've been Zach Brady of the reactionary.net, and I will see you in the next video.
Let Zach Brady show you how to learn the ins and outs of React now.